Welcome to the Tuesday, October 10th, 2023, regular closed session meeting of the EBMUD Board of Directors. The first matter is to consider Director Coleman's request for remote participation in accordance with Government Code Section 54953 et sec. Director John Coleman notified the Board President, the General Manager, and the Secretary of the District of the need to participate in today's closed session meeting from a remote location due to emergency circumstances. In accordance with Government Code 54953 et sec., Director Coleman will provide a general description of the circumstances relating to the need to appear remotely in today's closed session meeting. Director Coleman?
Thank you, President Katz. Yes, I need to participate remotely due to medical reasons for helping somebody in current need.
I will call for a motion to amend the agenda to allow the board to vote on Director Coleman's request to appear remotely.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And I'm presuming, Director Coleman, that this is in compliance, that the individual that you're describing is an individual who is covered by the Government Code section, correct? Just for the record. You don't need to identify the person, just including that for the
Yes.
record.
Yes.
Thank you. We will now vote on the motion. Roll call.
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Lenny?
Yes.
Director McIntosh?
Yes.
Director Young? Yes. President Katz?
Yes. Director Coleman, in accordance with Government Code Section 54953 F2C, you will need to keep your audio open and camera on at all times while appearing remotely. Additionally, in accordance with Government Code Section 54953 F2B, you will need to disclose whether any individual over the age of 18 is present in the room with you at any time during the remote meeting and describe the general nature of your relationship with the individual.
Thank you. I will keep the camera and video on, and there's nobody in the room with me.
Director Katz?
Yes.
Can you please call for a motion and second to vote on Director Coleman's request? So we amended the agenda to allow the request, so now we have to have a second vote to allow his
That's correct.
participation in the meeting.
Is there a motion?
The first vote was to amend the agenda because this item was not on the agenda. So the board voted to amend the agenda to allow Director Coleman's request.
When we have considered this previously, we received notice in time to include it on the agenda, and this time we are following the more emergency-related procedure when we find out within the 72 hours of posting.
Correct.
Okay, I'll move the item.
I'll second the item.
Roll call?
Give me one moment, I'm writing. Thank you. Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Lenny?
Yes.
Director McIntosh?
Yes.
Director Young?
Yes.
President Katz?
Yes. And I already made the acknowledgement related to Government Code Section 54953 F2C. I won't repeat it. That would normally have been read after the second vote, though. Madam Secretary, could you please advise about the request from Director Patterson?
Director Patterson is not online, so I ask that the president consider his absence excused.
Yes, I understand the reasons for Director Patterson's absence, and they are excused.
Thank you.
We move to public comment. If matters of the public are online and wish to make public comment, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. Comments on non-agenda items will be heard at the beginning of the meeting. Comments on agenda items will be heard when the item is up for consideration, which is at this time. Madam Secretary, are there any hands online for public comment?
There are no online public comments, but you have a card at your place.
Okay. I will call on Yvette Rivera.
Thank you for your time. Can you hear me? Doesn't sound like the mic is on.
It's on now.
Thank you. I provided you 3 documents. One is a document I gave board members, except April Chan because she wasn't here. I gave the board members this document on January the 10th, 2017. I just emailed you a copy of the video of me giving you all the information or referencing the information in this document. And it talks about East Bay MUD's whistleblower policy, which is by default the state of California's government policy under Disclosure of Information for Local Government 53296. I do want to tell you that when Michael Rich sent me this, and he no longer works here, he omitted the letter J from an email, and I can provide that email to any of you. And I'm going to read what it says. It says, reprisal action means any act of intimidation, restraint, coercion, discrimination, or disciplinary action against any employee or applicant for employment that files a complaint pursuant to 53297. I actually have to correct myself. The letter that he removed was from the next page, which says that a complaint can be filed, and I don't see where it says the grievance procedure is not included in the complaint process. So I have to make sure that that's in this document. I know it's on the third page, but I'll bring that to the 1 o'clock meeting, or I'll point to it in the 1 o'clock meeting if I have to. I'm providing you my appraisal, my proposed appraisal. I went to my direct supervisor, my superintendent, my manager. Now I'm being directed to go to the director to get unsubstantiated allegations against me taken out of the report, out of this proposed appraisal, and to take out two statements at the end. And one is that I am directed to attend third-party mediation with my supervisor. The reason why I provided the last document, which is an email from Derry Moten that I respond to, is because he tells me, after I report retaliation, that he's going to make arrangements with a facilitator to make my communication interactions with my supervisors, I guess, better. As I explained to Lisa McIntosh this morning, I've been told by other people at the district that have been put into these mediation sessions that it becomes part of a performance improvement plan, which is the last step before people get fired, or one of the last steps before people get fired. So I'm going to end by saying the district has a whistleblower policy, and the whistleblower policy is a state policy which says employees can go directly to you, and you do not have to hand it off to the very people that are retaliating against the employee. You actually can go to another agency, the state, the county, but please do stop going to the people that are creating the retaliation. Thank you, I yield.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera. I'll just briefly respond because I know that we've had a request from the board to have whistleblower policies and procedures reviewed at committee. That is under review at staff and will be showing up on a board agenda in the near future. And that was just a brief response. Thank you for
All
your
right, well,
comment.
the YouTube goes over what I explained about the district's whistleblower policy.
Thank you for your comment. We will now proceed into closed session to consider item 1 on the agenda. We will reconvene at 1:15 for a regular meeting. Welcome to the Tuesday, October 10th, 2023 regular business meeting of the EBMUD Board of Directors. In accordance with Government Code Section 54953 et sec, Director John Coleman notified the board president, the general manager, and the secretary of the district of the need to participate in today's regular meeting from a remote location due to emergency circumstances. In accordance of the Government Code Section 54953 et sec, Director Coleman will provide a general description of the circumstances relating to the need to appear remotely on today's regular meeting. Director Coleman.
Thank you, President Katz. I need to provide medical support currently for a relative.
Thank you. We'll ask for a motion and second to amend the agenda to allow the board to vote on Director Coleman's request to appear remotely.
I'll move that item.
Second.
Moved by Director Chan and seconded by Vice President McIntosh. Roll call.
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Lenny?
Yes.
Director McIntosh?
Yes.
Director Young?
Yes.
President Katz?
Yes. And now we will vote on that agenda item to vote on Director Coleman's request to appear remotely. Roll
So-
call.
So
Oh,
moved.
excuse me.
So moved.
Moved by Vice President McIntosh,
Second.
seconded by Director Chan. Roll call.
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Lenny?
Yes.
Director McIntosh?
Yes.
Director Young?
Yes.
President Katz?
Yes. Director Coleman, in accordance with Government Code Section 54953F2C, you will need to keep your audio open and camera on at all times while appearing remotely. Additionally, in accordance with Government Code Section 54953F2B, you will need to disclose whether any individual over the age of 18 is present in the room with you at any time during the remote meeting and describe the general nature of your relationship with such an individual.
Thank you, and there's nobody in the room with me.
Okay, and Director Patterson is excused. Roll call.
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes,
Direct-
present.
Director Lenny?
Here.
Director McIntosh?
Here.
Director Young?
Here.
President Katz?
Here. We will receive reports from the October 6, 2023 Upper McCollum River Watershed Authority meeting and this morning's Planning and Legislative Human Resources Committees under item 11. Now, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the
United States
United States of America,
and to the republic
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
There are no announcements from closed session. We have a very exciting presentation today from the American Society of Civil Engineers, San Francisco section. I will hand it over to General Manager Chan to introduce the awards.
Yes, we are very excited. We have actually 5 awards that the district received from the San Francisco section of the American Society of Civil Engineers, 4 outstanding project awards and 1 individual award. The outstanding project awards are in President Katz's and Director Young's awards. Just because there are quite a number of these, as I go through each project award and name the names of the individuals in the room, they'll come up to the front and give the board an opportunity to acknowledge them. And then for the individual award, we'll have President Katz present the individual award to Jimmy. And then we'd like to take a group photo with all of the winners, you, President Katz, and Director Young as well, since those projects are in the awards. So I will start with the first award, which is the Outstanding Water Project of the Year. And I think we're going to pull it up.
Yeah. Just
Online.
1 minute.
While you do that, so this award recognizes projects where the primary purpose is the supply, storage, and conveyance of potable and/or recycled water, and which demonstrate innovation and improvements to the state of practice for water supply and delivery projects. The San Pablo Clearwell and Rate Control Station Replacement Project replaced a 100-year-old open-cut reservoir with 2 large state-of-the-art buried concrete tanks within the same footprint to improve seismic reliability and operational flexibility of the distribution system. The project also replaced the San Pablo Rate Control Station, which supplies distribution reservoirs from the Wildcat Aqueduct. These facilities, along with North, Central, and Dunsmuir reservoirs, serve nearly 1 million people in the central pressure zone. Many staff members from various departments contributed to the success of this project, and some are present today to represent all those that contributed to the success of the project, and you see all the names on the slide. Those in the room are Tom Bullock, Associate Civil Engineer, Sana Garcia, Associate Civil Engineer, Robert Johnson, Senior Construction Inspector, Jin Lin, Assistant Engineer, Jason Littlefield, Senior Water Treatment Operator, Jenny McGregor, Senior Civil Engineer, Youssef Nuri, Associate Civil Engineer, Kevin Smith, Maintenance Superintendent, Sonia Spala, Associate Mechanical Engineer, Jamie Sweet, Assistant Engineer, and Carl Tingwald, Senior Civil Engineer. The next project award is the New Technology Project of the Year. This award recognizes projects that demonstrate innovation and advancement in technology to advance more efficient and sustainable civil infrastructure, including implementation of new methods and improvements with existing methods of incorporating new emerging technology. The Summit Pressure Zone South Pipeline Replacement Phase 1 is a large diameter pipeline project which replaced two critical transmission pipelines that crossed the Hayward Fault in Berkeley. In collaboration with UC Berkeley, this project included the installation of a fiber optic sensing system on approximately 500 feet of 22-inch and 700 feet of 36-inch HDPE pipelines. The fiber optic system can monitor strain in the pipelines to determine the displacement and deflection experienced within the fault zone to allow us to monitor the health of the pipe. Again, many staff members from various departments contribute to the success of the project, and those present today are Krista Araika, Associate Civil Engineer, Gus Chikala, Associate Civil Engineer, Marshall McLeod, Senior Civil Engineer, Jay Park, Associate Civil Engineer, Jose Perez, Engineering Designer 2, Benjamin Townley, Senior Civil Engineer, Patrick Wood, Senior Construction Inspector, and Sherry Zamarini, Assistant Engineer. The next project is the Outstanding Flood Management Project of the Year. This award recognizes projects whose primary purpose is flood management and flood protection that showcase advances and/or innovation in the management of floodplains, addressing historical flood issues, or emergency flood repairs and related improvements to the benefit of the environment and downstream lands and communities. The Moraga Creek Flood and Erosion Control Project included slope repair and creek restoration work to address soil movement that occurred during the 2016 and 2017 storm seasons. Work included installation of an earth retaining system and restoration of creek banks. Funding for the project was partially offset by a $5 million FEMA Cal OES hazard mitigation grant. This project reduces flood, seismic, and erosion movement risks in the community while also protecting the district's water supply. Some staff present with us today include Sam Gambino, Associate Civil Engineer, Joe Casira, Assistant Engineer, Kiana Kennedy, Real Estate Representative 2, Gopal Nair, Senior Environmental Health and Safety Specialist, Chris Potter, Senior Civil Engineer, Javier Prospero, Senior Civil Engineer, Mark Silva, Ranger Supervisor, and Michelle Workman, Manager of Fisheries and Wildlife.
I think Catherine Horn should come up too.
The last project award is the Outstanding Water and Wastewater Treatment Project of the Year. This award recognizes projects where the primary purpose is the treatment of water or wastewater and which demonstrate innovation and improve the state of practice for the water and wastewater treatment industry. In June 2023, the district completed the $48 million Maloney Pumping Plant and Sobriety Water Treatment Plant improvements to improve system reliability, operational safety, and redundancy in the event of an emergency that could impact thousands of customers in Contra Costa County. Electrical upgrades to both facilities included 2 new power buildings and an emergency generator with advanced emissions controls. The work also included upgrading the capacity of Maloney Pumping Plant from 30 million gallons per day to 45 million gallons per day. Staff with us today are Samuel Abraham, Assistant Engineer, Alex Boris, Senior Civil Engineer, Sharon Hu, Senior Electrical Engineer, Anna Lau, Associate Civil Engineer, Dennis Lingad, Assistant Engineer, Nikki Najdi, Associate Electrical Engineer, Cameron Nauman, Assistant Engineer, Ali Rahimi Ardabili, Associate Electrical Engineer, Terry Ann Reed, Senior Construction Inspector, Kevin Smith, Maintenance Superintendent, and Carl Tingwald, Senior Civil Engineer. And again, congratulations to all the project award winners. The last recognition is the ASCE San Francisco Section Individual Lifetime Achievement Award. The Lifetime Achievement Award recognizes ASCE members who, through their innovative efforts and long-term involvement, have advanced or significantly contributed to the field of civil engineering. Jimmy Yoloye exemplifies excellence in civil engineering with over 40 years of experience in water resources, wastewater, engineering, and construction management. 38 of those years have been spent at EBMUD, where his road to Director of Engineering and Construction involved oversight of numerous water and wastewater treatment, transmission, and storage projects. He is a leader in innovation at EBMUD and has advanced several initiatives, including formalization of EBMUD's dam safety program, advancement of emergency response procedures, and continuous improvement of design and construction management procedures with the evolution of technology. He also led EBMUD in its preliminary steps in establishing a recycled water program and facilities. He's an exceptional leader with a clear vision and keen ability to bring people together in achieving a common goal. Jimmy has been an active ASC member and supporter. He served as the chair and vice chair of the San Francisco section of the Construction Institute between 2007 and 2014. Please join me in congratulating Jimmy for this prestigious award. Given how prestigious the award is, I would like to invite Jimmy to say a few words.
Thank you, everybody. I was extremely surprised, but also honored and humbled to receive this award from ASCE. It's an amazing recognition for essentially just doing my job. And as Clifford mentioned, all but 2 of my professional working years have been with EBMUD, so I feel compelled to share this award with the district. Everything I've achieved in the field of civil engineering has been through my work at the district. I do particularly want to thank a few people. I've worked with hundreds of people at the district, and it would be impossible to name everybody, but there are always a few people that you remember helped you along your way, and so I want to mention 4 of those people right now. One is Marilyn Miller, who introduced me to project management when I was in the wastewater department, and actually that set me on my way. The late Dave Williams, who I worked for quite a number of years and got a lot of good advice from. Ed McCormick, who was instrumental in my move into construction management. He was very encouraging in that regard. And then finally, my predecessor as engineering and construction department director, Xavier Arias, who I worked for 13 years. All of those people I especially wanted to recognize. I also wanted to thank the board of directors for placing your faith and trust in me when you appointed me as engineering and construction department director about just over 4 years ago. But I also, more than the faith and trust in me, I wanted to express that I'm very appreciative of the faith and trust and that you placed in all of the senior management team to implement our infrastructure investments. It really does feel good. I've grown up in this organization. I've come through the ranks, and at every level that I've gone at, I have felt the authority that has been delegated to the staff to actually implement these projects, to manage our finances, to decide which projects are important, and to manage the appropriations that are necessary to implement those. And I think that has been manifested itself in the 4 project awards that we've received today. And I want to say thank you to all of you. Those are people in my department mostly. And I don't think that I would be able to do the work that I do without the dedication that they provide. How does this manifest with them? Well, I think we, as senior management team members, the faith and authority and authority that you have delegated to us we're able to appropriately delegate that down to the staff so that they can enhance their teamwork. They know what they're going to need to do. No one person or no one individual can accomplish the work that we do. So it enhances their teamwork. It enhances their stewardship of our resources. They have a focus for what we need to do. And they go about that with a sense of pride and accomplishment and ownership of the projects that they're involved in. And then finally, we work with, they work with each other, then we work with other agencies, and we work with the public. And through all of that, they demonstrate a lot of integrity and respect in all of the work that they do. So I think all of that manifests itself in the awards that have been received. And I would also mention that those awards were received for projects that, for the most part, were implemented through the pandemic. That's one area that I'm really proud of. In fact, in spite of all of the things that occurred, the staff really came through. So again, I just wanted to thank the board, my colleagues here at the district for enabling me to receive this Lifetime Achievement Award. And just thank you very much.
Jimmy, it's an honor to present this to you on behalf of the board, and it's quite an achievement to get this award from ASC, and it's very exciting that you're being honored with this after 38 years of service to the district. All of the teamwork that you just described, how you shepherded and mentored everybody who we've seen here today and others who are also serving the district to develop this essential public infrastructure through challenging times and beyond. So thank you so much for your service and for your great achievement at the district. It's an honor to present this.
President Katz, please stay up. If we can get all the award winners to the front. No, it'll work. It'll work.
You can be this. Well, if you're in front of the podium, nobody likes to be.
That's true.
Large group of people.
Is anybody left in the audience?
And just, we have some brief comments. I do want to acknowledge just so many of the non-engineers. While first and foremost, this was an engineering award, we are grateful to all of the different disciplines that contributed, especially I've appreciated what public affairs has done. We saw legal on some of these. We need everybody at the district partnering and working together, and we really appreciate that. Director Linney?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, in my 20-plus years here at the district, I've never seen such a large gathering for awards, and it just, you know, can't help but feel a real strong sense of pride in being part of East Bay MUD, and be part of the accomplishments and the teamwork that I see demonstrated here in these awards, and the leadership. And sometimes, you know, there's a lot of credit given to the board of directors, but a lot of times from this perspective, I have to say, we're just reflecting the great work that everyone here at East Bay MUD does, and we're very fortunate to be the beneficiaries of that and being able to serve in a quality organization. But in the end, it's really all about our employees and the work that you do and the care that you take in the work and the quality of the work that you do. And I just appreciate so much. Thank you.
Director Young?
Yeah, just briefly building on Director Lenny's comments. A couple of these projects are ones that I've, you know, sat in a number of meetings in. One I can think of in particular that really, these are big challenges that we face to take on providing these services to our customers so they can have, you know, reliable, safe water, and that we're protecting the bay and stewarding these resources. And I think we are on the cusp of so much more. And I feel incredibly proud of the work that all of you are doing to make this happen. And I mean, we just approved a budget that's what, 30% bigger than we've ever, for the biggest projects. And to see this kind of recognition and the kind of quality of work that's been done being recognized by your peers is really extraordinary. And I'm grateful and appreciative, and I know that you're creating a legacy that will serve long beyond our lifetime. So thank you all for the work that you do.
Okay. Thank you, Director Young. We will move to public comment. Madam Secretary, are there any speakers for public comment online?
I don't see any hands at the moment for public comment online, but you have a card at your place.
Okay, and I will just announce formally, if there are members of the public who are online and wish to speak on agenda or non-agenda items, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom, and comments on non-agenda items will be heard now, and comments on agenda items will be heard when the item is up for consideration. And I see a speaker card for Yvette Rivera. Ms. Rivera, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I provided a document at the 11 o'clock meeting, and I mentioned at that time that I was going to point out a section in that document that was important. But before I do that, I want to just acknowledge Director April Chan. I listened to the Legislation and Finance meeting. I wasn't able to be here 2 weeks ago, but I just want to say, as a ratepayer, I really appreciate how you stood your ground to make sure that the policy was going to be amended to ensure that there was oversight on the budget, and you did not budge. So I want to just thank you. I appreciate your efforts to ensure there's accountability at the district. I provided government the whistleblower policy that exists for East Bay MUD. Even though the district didn't create its own policy, there is a state policy for whistleblowing that exists and that the board is supposed to adhere to. I mentioned this morning that there was a line that the previous labor relations officer omitted from an email when I asked him about the whistleblower policy, and I did find it, and it's letter I on administrative procedure. It means any written administrative procedure adopted by the local agency for presentation of a grievance for the ultimate decision by the governing body of the local agency. That's you, not the general manager, not general counsel, and not some consultant. It says here that the term does not include the grievance procedures embodied in collective bargaining agreements, and that was the one line that was removed from the email when I asked what the district's whistleblowing policy was with Michael Rich. I did want to just touch base on your closed board agenda item, which was the Saji Pierce, Ariel Bland versus Craig Spencer and East Bay Mud. I know that the court has not made a decision yet on the district's desire to retry the case. Again, part of me wishes that it would be retried so I could see the whole thing since I was on vacation, but I assume the judge isn't going to allow that and that there probably will be a Ninth Circuit decision. I do want to say that reading the transcript, I haven't read it all, but reading what Alexander Coates said about this board of directors' responsibility and that it's to supervise general counsel's office, just reminded me that if this board of directors would have followed through on what Jan Duffy said in her report to look at the facts and make a decision based upon those facts, that maybe the district wouldn't be out of $8 million.
Thank you for your
Which is
comment.
accruing in interest. Thank you, I yield.
Madam Secretary, are there any additional hands for
President
public
Katz.
comment online?
President Katz,
Director
Before we
Col-
do that, let's go to Director Coleman.
thank you very much. If I could get a response from either General Manager, General Counsel. Ms. Rivera mentioned how when she asked for something, she only got part of the documentation. Is this par for the course when things are asked for that not everything is provided? It just seems odd to me.
I'd have to look at this particular instance that she's referring to. This is just new information for me, so I
Right.
don't feel prepared to respond to that, Director Coleman.
I know it came today, I understand that, but I think we need to be cognizant when people ask for information. Probably behooves us to provide all the information rather than bits and pieces of the information. That's my personal comment as a board member.
Okay, that's a brief response, and the general manager may respond if that information is found. We have additional card for public comment.
This is on item 10,
Okay.
possibly. Yes.
Any other speakers online?
No speakers online.
Okay, all right. Then we will move on to the consent calendar. There is a speaker card for determination and discussion, so we will consider a motion to approve consent calendar. Okay. It's been moved by Director Linney to approve items 1 through 7. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Director Young. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, we will move to a roll call vote.
Yes.
Director Coleman,
Yes.
Director Linney,
Yes.
Director McIntosh,
Yes.
Director Young,
Yes.
President Katz.
Yes, thank you. We will now move to determination and discussion. Item number 8, General Manager Chan.
Yes, it is my great pleasure to present this item to you, which is the appointment of Catherine Horn as our Senior Community Affairs Representative in our Public Affairs Office, where she'll supervise staff responsible for our community education efforts, including our K-12 program, Community Water Academy, community events, watershed and infrastructure tours, Water Wednesday series, and other activities. Catherine will also oversee our upcountry staff and will assist in the local government affairs work. Catherine comes to us with a substantial amount of water and wastewater industry experience in community engagement, strategic communications, crisis management, education, government relations, and management of staff. She previously worked for 6.5 years as a Community Affairs Representative 2 at East Bay MUD, where she managed local outreach for the East of Hills communities, launched the district's first ever Community Water Academy, and developed the public engagement plan for the Orinda Water Treatment Plant project. As a Senior Communications Manager for Katz & Associates, Catherine managed community outreach specialists and sub-consultants to educate the community and raise awareness around the multi-billion-dollar rebuild of San Francisco's largest wastewater treatment plant, coordinated Central Contra Costa County's sanitary district's 24 months comprehensive wastewater master plan outreach, and led outreach and communication efforts for the Marin Municipal Water District and Santa Clara Valley Water District. Most recently, Catherine worked at the Contra Costa Water District, where she was a public information specialist. We are very happy to have Catherine back with us at the district. I will also note that today is Catherine's birthday.
Oh, wow.
I'll move the item.
I'd like to move the item.
I'll
Moved by-
second it.
Moved by Director Young, and it could have been the time lapse, but Director Linney did second it first.
500 miles away, yeah, I understand.
We will all have an opportunity to have some brief comments right after. I'm sure some of us have a few things to say. So we'll take a roll call vote on the motion.
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Linney?
Yes.
Director McIntosh?
Yes.
Director Young?
Yes.
President Katz?
Yes.
Welcome back.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'll give my comments now.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Clifford, President Katz, Vice President McIntosh, and members of the board. It is truly an honor to be celebrating my birthday with you here today and be accepting the position of Senior Community Affairs Representative. It feels very full circle having celebrated the Moraga Flood Restoration Project, as that was my very first project taking on when I started here almost 7 years ago. So again, thank you so much. I'm very excited to rejoin Kelly's team of nimble, hardworking, resourceful communicators to continue to work to bolster the reputation of the district within our service area and beyond. I realize that this position has a very unique set of responsibilities and challenges that I am very excited to take on head first. And work, using creativity, time, and energy to apply to really work on achieving our education, communications, and public outreach goals. So thank you so much for putting your trust in me, and I really am very excited about this opportunity.
Thank you. And I would like to just briefly acknowledge first, thank you so much for joining the district, and we really very much look forward to working with you. Welcome back, and I would just like to say that it was really important to me that this budget that we adopted while you were away at our sister agency includes a down payment to make an investment in outreach for education. And getting youth into the outdoors, I think, is really important for equity on so many levels to provide youth with an outdoor education experience, especially as they may be learning the water cycle, but not actually getting to experience water the way we experience it as professionals. And I think providing that exposure at an educational level can provide so much benefit and value for our customers and for society and for those youth. And that's my vision for that direction. And I'm just commenting about that to share it because it was important to me in the budget. Your position includes a much broader portfolio than that, and I welcome your move back to the district. Director Young?
Yeah, I'm thrilled.
And then Director Coleman.
When you departed, I said to myself, I don't think she's going to be where she's going very long, but I did not expect you to be back, and I'm thrilled. I think my first project when I started on the board is the same one as yours in Moraga, and to see the picture now of the hillside on the creek is just sort of a testament to what it takes to move through a very difficult situation and end up with allies and partners and happy neighbors is in large part thanks to the work and the capability that you bring to this. And so I am so excited about both the upcountry work, the education work, the Community Water Academy, and just thrilled to have you back.
Director Coleman.
Thank you, President Katz. Catherine, it is phenomenal you're back. I think at the time I said it was our loss, CCWD's gain when you left. Now I can say it's our gain, and as much as I like CCWD, it is their loss. You've been great. You're excellent to work with, and I know you'll do phenomenal in this new position, so congratulations.
And happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Great. Number 9?
Yes, so next one is about the military pay. I think you're aware, but the district recently received the Department of Defense's Freedom Award, which is the highest award a company can receive. We were one of 15 recipients of the award this year, one of 325 employers who have received the award since 1996, and the only public water or wastewater utility to have received this award at all. The award shows the district's commitment to supporting its reservists. At the September 12th Legislative Human Resources Committee meeting, we brought to the committee a proposal to modify our policy to provide special military pay and benefits for up to 24 months for employees who are National Guard members or military reservists called to active duty by the President of the United States or the Governor of California. The proposal would also allow us to establish and temporarily backfill the permanent position while the reservist is on active duty. The proposal was supported unanimously by the committee. For your consideration today is a resolution to make the changes I described to our policy and further demonstrate our commitment to our reservists.
May I?
Yeah, Vice President McIntosh.
This is an absolutely wonderful idea, and I happily move the resolution. We had a great presentation during our last Human Resources Committee meeting, and I'm just very proud of going forward with this. So I move the item.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Vice President McIntosh and seconded by Director Young. Any discussion? Roll call.
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Lenny?
Absolutely, yes.
Director McIntosh?
Absolutely.
Director Young?
As long as we're doing absolutely, I will go along with that, yes.
And Katz?
Absolutely, yes. All right. Motion passes. Thank you. And did we call virtual members too?
There are no public comments.
I meant to just make sure we had a complete roll call of all directors present.
You did.
Okay, thank you. General Manager's Report, number 10.
Yes, so at the last board meeting, the board requested a presentation on how pension system reciprocity works. In your board packet is a memo on understanding pension system reciprocity, and we have our Director of Human Resources, Tanisha Ron, with a presentation to review this information.
Give us 1 minute, Cindy.
Sure.
It won't. Click one time with the mouse, Cindy. 1 second, let Tanya set up the screen. Want to move that up, Tanya? Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, President Katz and the remaining Board of Directors. Thank you for this opportunity to engage with you on an overview of understanding the pension system reciprocity. As General Manager Chan had mentioned, Director Linney had requested that we provide an overview. I just want to also just make a disclaimer that the overview that we're about to provide is a general overview. I will not be going into any specific detail regarding any personal matters or any legal matters that may be underway. So thank you for that. So in these next few slides, I'd like to provide an overview of the history, brief historical context on reciprocity. What is reciprocity? How does it work? And what are the eligibility requirements? As many of you know, understanding pension and pension systems can be very complicated. So I will attempt to simplify what reciprocity means and how valuable that is. And lastly, how is reciprocity administered at the district? I will also provide a couple of examples and scenarios to better understand some of the different examples that we'll talk about. Okay, so just some brief historical background. In 1937, the district's Board of Directors enacted Ordinance Number 40, also known as the Retirement Ordinance, to establish a retirement system for its employees. In 1984, the board authorized an agreement with the California Public Employees Retirement System, also known as CalPERS, to provide reciprocal benefits between the district and reciprocal public agencies. Thank you for that. What is reciprocity? Reciprocity is an agreement among participating California public retirement systems that allows public employees to move between participating public employers without losing valuable benefits. So if you were to imagine a role without reciprocity, basically if you're moving from one public system to the other, it allows you to not have to start all over again in terms of vesting. And we'll go into some details about, again, just how important reciprocity is in establishing it. It also allows public employees to continue to be a member of multiple retirement systems, but they are subject to the benefits and laws of each system. So if you were to leave EBMUD after 2 years, for example, 5 years is our vesting, you would not be able to establish reciprocity here, and as a result, you would not be able to leave your retirement on deposit with us. Third, reciprocity also allows you to provide reciprocal benefits to eligible employees. So if you were coming, say, from another system, say Alameda County, and you were in a classic tier, you would be able to maintain that classic tier as you move into another reciprocal agency. So again, these are just important factors to consider. And lastly, reciprocity also assumes any unfunded liability that may result from the application of reciprocal benefits. When I talk about an example shortly, we'll go into specifics of what that means. Reciprocity, again, it's a public agreement that allows vesting in a public pension system that's based on service accrued from another reciprocal public pension system. Except for HIB, it does not include health insurance benefits. The application includes average compensation earned in a reciprocal, the application of the highest average compensation earned in a reciprocal agency to apply to all reciprocal agencies. This is very sensitive. So now let's look at an example. So again, reciprocity, this is an employee that worked for 3 California public agencies who were subject to a reciprocity agreement throughout their career. The employee established reciprocity with each change that was made as they moved from one public reciprocal agency to the next. So this employee worked for City of Hayward, had 15 years of service, made highest salary was $25,000 annually. They left City of Hayward, they went to City of Oakland. They worked for 10 years, making $75,000 annually. And then they moved on to greener pastures and came to EBMUD, working 4 years of service at $150,000 annually. What is the employee's pension? The answer is, so the employee worked for Hayward, Oakland, and EBMUD.
I'm sorry, just 1 minute. The slide says 15 years, highest compensation of $150,000, but isn't it $25,000 the highest compensation in the chart?
This is a hypothetical profile, and it looks like that person at the beginning of their career may have earned that.
This is how to calculate. Well, let Cindy.
Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm
correct.
jumping ahead in the slide.
This is correct.
I'm sorry, okay.
Yes. So regardless of what amount they may have made at each of the reciprocal agencies they worked at, their highest compensation was $150,000, which was at East Bay Mud. They were very well compensated.
Got it.
So that is basically the employee's pension. Now, earlier, when we talked about I'm going to go back to this point, number 4. So reciprocity, this agreement allows basically any employer to assume an unfunded liability that may result from the application of these reciprocal benefits. And so that is an example of that. And I may have Lourdes explain this a little bit. So we assume, every public agency basically assumes that liability and the difference.
Right. So, for example, in explaining what happens to the city of Hayward, they did not plan for a pension based on $150,000. They planned for this individual's pension to be $25,000. However, what the reciprocity agreement that the district has entered into with CalPERS and other reciprocal agencies, what Hayward has agreed to in that agreement is that as long as this employee satisfies the eligibility requirements for reciprocity, Hayward will honor that highest compensation in whatever agency ends up paying that and will assume the unfunded liability of that amount. So they didn't plan to award this employee or to give this employee a pension based on 15 years of service and $150,000. But because of that reciprocal agreement, they have agreed to do that, and they will pay a pension based on that amount. They don't get $150,000. It's 15 years times whatever Hayward's formula is. Let's say it's 2% times $150,000.
Right, so the percentage is whatever Hayward's percentage is, and the way that highest compensation is calculated is also based on Hayward's plan. So if their final compensation is highest 3 years, or highest average of 3 years, that's what would apply. If ours was something different, that's what ours would be. Those two pieces stay with
Yes, so.
Stay with the agent, stay with Hayward, stay with Oakland, stay with East Bay Mud. They
Right,
don't have
so
to
if
accept
our-
our formula.
Right, if our formula is 2.6%. Hayward will not give them a pension based on 2.6% if their formula is 2%.
Right, okay.
But they will apply the highest average compensation earned at the district.
So it's the compensation that is,
Yes, and yes. Sorry.
Great, thank you, Lourdes.
Excuse me, I have a quick question.
Yes, Director Coleman.
So, thank you very much. When the decision is made, it's when the retiree, whomever it is, retires from, in this case, all 3 systems on the same day. And isn't it that point that the retirement, the division of, not labor, but the division of cost is, they meet, in this case, Hayward, Oakland, East Bay Mud, or CalPERS in this case, and East Bay Mud to determine how it's going to be done, correct? At that point,
Are you asking if the 3 agencies agree to divide the cost of the pension among themselves?
yes.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Each agency assumes the pension liability based on that higher amount, even though they didn't plan for it. And they can't plan for it because they don't know what their employees are going to do. So there is no cost agreement.
Okay, so when does it go to CalPERS and what does CalPERS do? Because my understanding, CalPERS will at that point meet with whichever agencies and decide how it's going to be divided.
Each agency is liable for the pension. There's no cost sharing.
Okay,
just to clarify, they're responsible for the years of service at that agency to apply their agency's formula. And at the highest compensation is what's reciprocal. The formula and the years of service are not reciprocal. They're the responsibility of the agency that the person worked for.
Correct.
Is that correct? Yeah.
And what if the highest compensation, in that example, there was 3, but the highest compensation could have been the second one, right?
Yeah.
Let's
Or
say
the
the
first one.
second, Yeah, or the first one. So it would still be at the highest compensation at any period of time. Yeah, okay,
Yeah, as long as the eligibility requirements. are
right.
met.
I think just getting back to Director Coleman's question, I believe does each organization make its own determination, or do they coordinate among them at
yeah.
retirement?
So,
Do they coordinate, or is it independently made by each, in this case, the
Well,
three entities?
so what Cindy had just said in the prior slide is that there is an agreement among the agencies to provide reciprocal benefits, but to also enforce the eligibility requirements of reciprocity. And Cindy hasn't gotten into that, but there are common factors that all reciprocal agencies agree are the factors which render a person eligible for the benefit. So either the employee meets all of those factors or they don't. There isn't an individual, like for example, CalPERS can't say, you didn't leave your money with us, employee, which you'll see Cindy will show
Let's
is
get to that
is
slide
a
as soon as we can.
eligibility
because
Why
I
don't we
think
go to
it
the
will help.
eligibility slide and then come
Yeah,
back?
Okay.
yeah, come back.
All right.
I think that'll be just helpful.
I can talk about this all day. But I will let my colleague.
As many of you know, Lourdes Matthews is our attorney that supports our retirement board. Okay, so some of these questions will be answered in these further slides. So what are the rules, the eligibility requirements? And because reciprocity can result in a high pension enhancement, it has definitely some very strict principles, some strict requirements that have to be met. One, an employee must maintain membership in the prior reciprocal agency by leaving the employee contribution. So if I were to cash out today because I'm moving on somewhere else, I am no longer qualified as, to maintain membership at EBMUD. Second, become a member of a new reciprocal agency within 6 months of leaving the prior reciprocal agency. This is an area that's also very strict. You can't even overlap by 1 day. This is something that's usually monitored. And unfortunately, this is also an area where a lot of mishaps also happen, with public agencies in general, but they do get corrected and that's a good thing. Number 3, to prevent double dipping into public pension systems, there can be no overlapping service in 2 reciprocal agencies at the same time. There definitely has to be a clear separation, termination from one reciprocal agency joining the next. And one of the things that we have seen, sometimes there's a temptation to want to stay on vacation at one agency while you start at another agency, or withdraw slowly from any leave balances, stay on the books, and then at the same time, join another reciprocal agency. That's definitely one of the areas. It's still considered an overlapping of service.
And can you highlight that a little bit more as to terms of why that's considered double dipping or how that?
Sure, because technically you're still on the books. The employer has not officially separated you from their organization because they're still paying you out. So officially, you are still considered a paid employee in their books. And as a result, that is one of the areas in our retirement ordinance that clearly outlines that you cannot have overlapping service.
But your
Can't-
employer's still making,
your
because the employer's still
contributions
making
in 2
contributions
systems
to
at
the
the same
pension,
time.
Correct.
right?
Yeah,
Correct,
As are you.
right. Yeah,
correct.
okay.
So I have a question on that, if I
Sure.
could. I'll lower my hand, thank you. Clearly throughout CalPERS, it keeps talking about overlapping service and that there are 4 requirements for receiving the benefits. I could not find the terms that CalPERS uses in our retirement system for either overlapping service or concurrent employment in our ordinance. So where are they in our ordinance?
In section 34 of our retirement ordinance, the words are actually pretty clear, that it requires termination from one reciprocal agency before entering employment with another reciprocal agency. So that's the specific ordinance.
that specifically say overlapping and concurrent employment? I don't have it up in front of me.
Correct.
I think I may have it here, actually.
Yeah, no, I mean, it doesn't say what Director
Right.
Coleman said about overlapping and concurrent, but it said what you have said previously, Cindy, which is the same thing.
Yeah.
But, okay. You know, you're talking about CalPERS, and I appreciate that. But one thing that was not in our attachment was on CalPERS, and maybe if Risha can put it up on the screen, 'cause I sent it to her last night.
Give
It
us one
lists-
moment, Director Coleman.
Okay, thank you, Risha.
Can I just ask,
Sure.
just clarify? CalPERS manages pension contributions for how many local agencies in hundreds of local agencies in California, correct? They're members, those agencies have become members of the CalPERS system. So when we talk about CalPERS, yes, we're talking about, state state employees. We're also talking about many local governments and special districts that have chosen to become part of CalPERS or have CalPERS administer their pensions. And then there's also 37 Act systems and others like us who somehow have managed to hang on to an individual pension system. That's what, looks like that's what's up here, so.
What I put up there and highlighted, it says CalPERS, this is from CalPERS itself. It was within their stuff that it was not provided to the board. It says CalPERS authority extends only to applying and implementing the California Public Employees Retirement Law. It does not extend to applying and implementing the laws or regulations under which other public retirement systems are administered. Then it mentions the independent public agency retirement systems. So we have hundreds of members in CalPERS, but EBMUD is one of maybe 15 that is an independent public retirement system. So there seems to be a conflict of what is CalPERS have authority over us, or do we
So
have
that's
our own
CalPERS
authority?
statement. Yeah, that's CalPERS statement, and CalPERS has to follow CalPERS laws, and the district has
Okay.
to follow the district's laws, and
Okay.
which is in our retirement ordinance. And our retirement ordinance has requirements that are similar to CalPERS laws with respect to eligibility for reciprocity and the rights to reciprocity.
Right, there are 4 points that CalPERS highlights specifically as to being able to achieve retirement from CalPERS. And again, I couldn't find how we had, and I'll have to go back and look under section 34, I guess, how our system is independent in terms of reciprocity and overlapping service and concurrent employment. Can you put up section 34 so we can see it?
I don't think we have it here, but it's worded differently, but it's the same concept. And again,
Why is
it's
it
worded
worded
from
differently?
1984 when we entered into the agreement. And yes, it hasn't been updated, but it hasn't changed.
But I thought in our ordinance, it requires that if changes come from CalPERS, we need to update those and the verbiage.
You'll have to point that out to me.
I need to find it here. I've got lots of pages, but that's what I recall having read before. They have 4 points of to get reciprocity. And then it talks about EBMUD having its own system. When EBMUD can't tell CalPERS what to do, they can't tell us what to do, correct?
Correct? But I'm saying the elements for eligibility, the factors for eligibility are the same. So CalPERS enforces that, and we enforce it. It's reciprocal,
Well-
so it's like shared eligibility because we're agreeing to this massive benefit funded by public funds.
But it's
Is
not
there a-
not clearly stated. I guess it needs to be clearly stated so no future employee is confused between the two systems. It is not clearly stated, which could lead to mistakes being made.
Can I ask a question? Is my understanding from this presentation and also discussion earlier is that this whole system is governed by state law. Is that correct, or is there two separate laws?
There are state laws that actually expressly prohibit overlapping service. And the policy reason that prohibits overlapping service is that it serves to prevent one employee resulting in a windfall in a pension because they can. And it's using public funds to fund, to fund that employee's pension. So these
But the
requirements.
reciprocity laws under which this is governed, is there one law, or is this under the MUD Act, or
So
is
we
this?
have, with the agreement, we have agreed to follow those laws,
Right, and they are.
right? Because we don't have to offer reciprocity, and so it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter if you have overlapping service if we don't offer reciprocity. If we do offer reciprocity, that means two agencies are agreeing to do something together
Right.
in lockstep with each other.
And so
So
both-
yes, the
So both
requirements.
CalPERS and East Bay MUD's retirement system are governed under the same law of this reciprocity, and they just have policies that
Yeah,
state
so
that
it's so it's the same requirements. We have our ordinance. We state those requirements differently in our ordinance, but it's the same requirements.
My understanding is that oftentimes the same legislative instrument will modify multiple authorizing statutes at the same time. So the 37 Act passed in 1937 amended or created perhaps the PEARL, the Public Employees Retirement Law, the SERL, the County Employees Retirement Law, and the MUD Act, and perhaps other systems that may have existed at the time.
That statement that says CalPERS will enforce their laws, that goes more towards, okay, some of our plans have different, or, may have a formula or a different way of calculating pension benefits. That's what they're saying applies. Similarly, we're saying the same thing. Whatever our formula is, that's what applies. Like, we're not going to be bound to a CalPERS agency who offers, a formula based on 5%. We're not going to be held to that. We're going to be held to our policy, which you all created, and we're going to be held to the formula that you all set for the retirement system.
I want to just clarify the shorthand that was stated about overlapping service. If someone had the time or had additional vacation leave that was still running, overlapping service can in fact occur, but the eligibility for reciprocity is what's defeated or made ineligible because of overlapping service. Did I summarize that correctly?
So, yes, overlapping service, one of the requirements for reciprocity is that there must be a clear break in service before you begin membership from one public system to the next public system.
I think what President Katz is asking is, like, you can vacation out and be working at two agencies, you'll still get the pension from each agency, but the reciprocity gets nullified.
Right,
You
it
can do
renders
two
you
jobs, you
ineligible.
just can't be a
Right,
member.
we're talking about reciprocity eligibility in this conversation. We're not
Right.
necessarily talking about your ability to
It doesn't
have a
prevent
job.
overlapping service.
Right,
It just renders you ineligible for reciprocity if you have
Just wanted to
overlapping
clarify
service.
that, thank
Yeah.
you. We'll go to Director Young and then back to Director Coleman.
The question since we have this slide up, we talked about the agreement that we have with CalPERS. In the agreement, did we also enter into agreements with all of these other independent and public agency retirement systems and the 37 Act counties?
No, we have our agreement with CalPERS, and then through that agreement, it relates or it extends to those others who have reciprocity with CalPERS.
Ah,
So we're all operating. under
So
the
we're
same
all,
rules.
right,
okay.
right.
Okay, so basically CalPERS provides the umbrella of reciprocity that applies across all of the public retirement systems in California that have entered into agreements with CalPERS. And so as a it's like they basically act as a conduit
Right.
for those,
Reciprocity to
for the
work.
reciprocity
Yeah.
agreements across all of those agencies.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. I guess, first of all, it's extremely confusing. I think, Cindy, you even said that in the beginning of your presentation. And probably board members have a little bit better insight by virtue of being on the board. But what about the employees who are at the district or future employees? Are they required to read? Apparently, they need to read the state law. And it should be very clear in our ordinance. And the ordinance should be fixed to make it very clear. So that is not a future problem. And maybe this is something that the board can undertake. So there are no problems regarding that issue on overlapping service. And the other thing is, why can't EBMUD or CalPERS just give service credit time in the overlapping service?
I think maybe for the first question, the ordinance is the ordinance, for the board that we operate under, but there are retirement system handbooks that we do provide to employees that do describe things like overlapping service and others in language that's probably more understandable for the layperson. But the ordinance is, much more complicated to describe things, but we do provide that information for employees so it is more understandable with calculations like this is how it was calculated in simple terms.
Cindy, do we, as part of onboarding, I mean, we know if somebody's coming with an employment history at another public agency, is that part of the onboarding discussions? Like, oh, I can see, we're hiring you. Right now you work for the city of Hayward. When you come over here, we have reciprocity with the city of Hayward with our pension program. So make sure, if you want to be able to use the highest salary that you get to apply back to have reciprocity, make sure that there's a clear break in service is that part of the onboarding discussion that happens?
It is part of the onboarding orientation, and just a little bit later in another slide, I'll
Okay.
actually talk about the process. I actually wanted to go back and clarify something, Director Coleman. I did not say that the process is confusing. I said the retirement laws are very complex. Pension is complex, reciprocity is complex. And that's why we're here as a team to talk about it, and I do appreciate these questions. To your point about clarity of language, I actually agree. There are parts of the retirement ordinance, and as we are working on the implementation of Pension Gold, Valerie Weekly, the retirement administrator, and I, Lisa Serrani, we are all reviewing our processes at the moment as it relates to the implementation of our retirement system. And so as we review the business processes and as it translates to how that might effectuate certain changes, we are bringing these matters up to the retirement board as we speak. And so this is a very relevant conversation.
I have a similar observation, sort of the opposite end of the talking about offboarding. Of course, we want to be a employer of choice agency that brings the best from other places, but sometimes it is in our employees' best interests to leave and go to a different agency, and that we regret that. But of course, we need to support our employees and participate in this whole ecosystem of an integrated benefit system and plan. And so a common issue that I hear about a lot is a stray overlapping day that an employee never intended, but because of paperwork, because of delay in processing, they end up inadvertently with an overlapping day or week of service. And that to me sounds quite tragically preventable. And I think communication is really helpful. There's really no specific case at the district. I want to be very clear about that. But I hear about this in the CalPERS system and other county systems. And I'm interested in what we can do to have open communication with our employees so that if we are aware of another agency's start date, that we presume that the employee intends to have reciprocity, and that we follow, or that we at least provide the employee an option of having their last date end before their new start date. And that if we have a processing delay, that we find a way of documenting their intention to sever on the intended date. So there may be other best practices, but I think I've made clear that the risk, and I think that's good for morale overall, even though they're leaving the district. I think it prevents disappointment, and it models a best practice that we hope that other public agencies would embody too.
Thank you, President Katz. And it also bolds towards providing excellent service, and that's an area that we definitely continue to strive towards.
I just would like to follow up again. Why don't they give service credit from overlapping years? Not the dollars, but the overlapping years.
What do you mean by service credit?
Well, how many years you're there is your years of service.
Because it's overlapping.
And maybe if I understand your question, Director Coleman, I mean, you can have overlapping service with other agencies, and their pension will be calculated based on the time you're with that agency.
At the salary.
At the salary at that agency, but what the overlapping service renders that individual ineligible for is reciprocity for the highest salary. So, those years that you worked at both agencies where they're overlapping would count towards your pension calculation for that agency. That employee just wouldn't be eligible for reciprocity.
I couldn't speculate on the policy reason these decisions were made a century ago, but these are very classic rules that have to affect the way we operate because they have so much momentum, and it seems that this is the system that we're working within, and so we are. I agree that communications is a challenge, and I have never seen a publication from any of the agencies that fully explains all of the answers to all of the questions. So I think there's always more that we could do better, but it also seems that someone with there are certain very commonly accruing issues and key messages, and it sounds like some of those key messages are here and could be prominently summarized and brought up in those consultation meetings that we have with our members.
Thank you, President Katz. I also just wanted to add
Go ahead.
that we're also very fortunate that as a public agency, we are a reciprocal agency. There are public agencies out there that do not offer reciprocity. So again, it's one of those great things that EBMUD offers. Director Coleman?
Yeah, I'd agree. There should be no double dipping, period. That makes no economic sense at all. And I don't think anybody can argue for that. But the handbook, when they come in, they're given a handbook, correct, on how the process works for employees, reciprocity, pension, and all that sort of stuff?
Correct.
So what happens if somebody doesn't get the book?
In a later slide, I'll go through the new employee onboarding process and the things that we cover. In the onboarding process, there is a comprehensive review of all benefits that apply to an employee. If the employee elects to sign up for those benefits, I'm not aware of an instance where a handbook or information related to where they can resource this information that hasn't been provided. And again, I can't speak to anything beyond the time that before me.
When did that start? What year?
You just said you couldn't answer anything before you got here.
Well, somebody's got to be able to answer that question.
I'm sure we can, and maybe that's a question I can get back to you on.
Okay. I'll look forward to it. Thank you.
We have one hand for public comment. Did you want to continue the presentation or take the comment now?
I'd like to continue with the presentation, if that's okay.
Yeah, we'll wait till the end of the presentation and then take public comment.
Thank you.
Okay, I think where we left off, or where we just spent some time, is item number 3. So item number 4, again, we're talking about what are the rules, the requirements, eligibility requirements for reciprocity. And number 4, the employee must retire from all reciprocal agencies at the same time. Okay. All right, moving on to another scenario. What are the eligibility requirements? Here is another example. Employees spent their career in public service. They worked for the city of Danville from January 1st of 1985 to January 1st, 1995, so roughly about 10 years. They left the city of Danville and collected contributions they made to the pension. And then they began employment with the city of Richmond on January 1st, 1996, so that was 6 months after the time in which they needed to establish with another reciprocal system. Do they qualify? And the answer is no, the employee is not eligible to establish reciprocity between the city of Danville and the city of Richmond. Again, they worked for 10 years, they left the city of Danville, they collected their contributions, so whatever they had vested, they went ahead and collected that contribution they made towards the pension system, and then it was more than 6 months that they joined another reciprocal agency.
Well, so they violated 2 of the eligibility.
Correct.
Both the fact that they left the system because they collected everything that they contributed to it, and it was a year gap.
Correct.
But they would not, okay, so they vested probably. I mean, I'm assuming there was a 10-year 5-year vesting or something like that.
That's the assumption. Mhm. Okay, and last scenario, what are the eligibility requirements? Moving on to our third example, same employee as previous slide. And again, we're providing these scenarios because we want to give just sort of, different examples of when reciprocity one qualifies for reciprocity versus not. Employee works for the city of Richmond until January 1st, 2006, 10 years. Employee decides to vacation out from the city of Richmond and begins employment with the city of Walnut Creek to get double compensation, and this happens a lot. Employee began vacationing out from the city of Richmond on December 1st, 2005, about one month of vacation, until the end of their employment with the city of Richmond on January 1st, 2006, and they started working for Walnut Creek on December 1st, 2005. Do they qualify for reciprocity? They are not eligible for reciprocity because they vacationed out and they were earning double compensation.
So this is the example of the overlapping service.
This is an example of overlapping service. And again, this is a common occurrence. This happens often. Okay, let's talk about the administration of reciprocity. I'm winding down to the last few slides, and this speaks to how we administer. This is our administrative process. The district retirement staff, they work with employees at hire or later to establish reciprocity. Newly hired district members are provided information about reciprocity and asked to complete a history of their public sector employment. The staff uses the employment history to complete request forms that are sent to the reciprocal agency. And upon the reciprocal agency's determination of reciprocity, this can take a few months, the member receives notice from both agencies that lets them know whether they were eligible for reciprocity, whether it was established or not, and the reasons.
And so when you say newly hired, is that before they start? Before the start date? Or when, since one of the overlapping service issue is a big one, I mean, before somebody actually, punches the time clock for their first day at EBMUD as part of the, it's the paperwork that happens before they actually begin employment.
So as part of their onboarding process, this is one of the forms that they are given to fill out to establish reciprocity. And it takes a couple of months.
No, but I'm talking about so hypothetical, say that this was the person, instead of leaving the city of Richmond to come to East Bay Mud, they, come in, 2 weeks before their start date and do their, this and that and the other thing, right? And you say, wait, you're still actually on the clock at the city of Richmond. If you want to establish reciprocity, you can't be on their payroll still when you start working here. Do we do that? I'm asking the HR people whether that is part of the process or not.
I'm going to have Lisa Serrani speak to that.
Thanks, Lisa.
Because there's a number of scenarios that come up.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, as part of that conversation, I mean, it's been long enough for me that I don't remember that, but then I didn't have the public.
Hi, we do, so the information that they receive is part of our, what we call our onboarding, pre-boarding. So they do get paperwork. Since 2015, we've had the NeoGov system, so they have access to a whole portal that gives them information about retirement benefits, forms that they fill out, including this form asking them about their public service. There isn't space in that for us to counsel somebody about making sure that their prior term date is before their start date with East Bay Mud. So it's not that deep. We don't then have, we have a new hire orientation usually a couple weeks after they've started.
So too late.
So it's later. So it is not, we would hope that their exiting agency would have helped them understand that, but we don't have, they have information and they are reading about reciprocity, and they have forms that they're filling out that explain what reciprocity is, but we are not in counsel one-on-one with new hires.
But the paperwork says, we're asking you about your prior public service, this is why.
Yes.
Because you're going to be entering the East Bay Mud retirement system, blah, blah, blah. Does it have, it would be helpful to actually have that
In
piece of
their
paper?
retirement handbook is part of what they see, and the public agency, it's been a little while since I've looked very specifically at that form. It asks for a lot of detailed information.
Well, could we see that? Could you just?
We will bring it back to you, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that, Lisa, it's a single page from what I recall looking at the earlier presentations that the new employee fills out, correct?
Correct. It's a single form.
It's a single form, and I would suggest, going on Marguerite's question, it certainly needs more clarity what is going on in that respect. And we started that single form when? What year?
We use that form with NeoGov since 2015. I'd have to ask staff. CalPERS actually creates a lot of these forms. There used to be, so when they updated to the newest version that we're currently using, I'm not exactly sure of what the date was. But the form we use now, it has a lot of information. It asks a lot more question. Probably it came after 2013 when PEPRA began, because there's some additional questions you want to ask to also confirm tier as you're thinking about reciprocity. So my guess is the form we're using today is probably from a little after 2013, but I'm not certain. But there's been a form, CalPERS has provided forms to help people establish their reciprocity probably since 1984 when we started.
Right. And I'll just add to, in your packet, we have the road to retirement, the information we do provide employees, and I'm just looking on page 13, it pretty clearly states, talks about vesting, termination, reciprocity, and what's required. So, I mean, there is, we can explain it, but we also provide the information. I mean, the employees have some duty to understand this and ask questions too.
Correct. Before we used NeoGov, we had thick packets of paper that we handed out to new hires, and that handbook was included in that thick packet of paper. Now it's available in the online portal that we use with new hires.
So when did that thick packet of paper start and finish? When did we start giving it out, and when did we stop giving it out?
It's been used since I got here in 2013, but I don't know
Let's say
before
hypothetically
that.
2005. That's a hypothetical year.
What?
Director Coleman,
What
I'm sorry, I'm
was the
trying to
new-
understand the relevancy of that question.
Well, the relevancy is, let's say somebody started working at East EBMUD in 2005. What was the process? What were they told? What information were they given in order to understand all the rules and laws? I'm sure there are many people at the district who've been there since at least 2005.
John, can I interrupt here?
Sure.
I asked for this item to understand reciprocity. I believe that, you're going beyond our mission and trying to get information here. And I understand you're trying to understand it for your situation.
No, actually not, Doug. I'm trying to understand it for employees coming in and future employees so that there's no.
Right, but you're asking for history of
confusion.
2005 or prior administrations, and I think that's a very difficult question to expect staff to be able to answer,
Well,
either in this
if they-
forum or in
Then they-
others.
Then they can provide it at a later time if they don't know now.
I mean, I think questions about whether we're properly informing our employees of this information is entirely in line with what we're trying to understand here. But going back historically, I think is a very challenging situation
Well, I
at this
suspect we
point.
have I suspect we have all those records someplace. I can't imagine the records are gone from 2005, 2010, whatever the case may be.
I think, and Lourdes, feel free to correct me. I mean, we can go back in time and see, when we may have started with the packet of information that we provide to employees, and when we, switched to NeoGov. As far as, what we did to help employees out. But I do think, at the end of the day, the law is a law that we have to follow. And whether the information was provided or not, the law is a law. And whether the employee got it or didn't get the information, we can't break the law.
And if I may just add, as a new director coming in and working on our strategic planning process, the goal is to eliminate as much paperwork as possible to streamline the things that we do and do it quickly. And Director Coleman, I understand that you've been employed with us since 1991, which is wonderful. I hope that you can expect that changes to streamline and improve our processes has happened. So if there was a time that we used two forms and we use one form today, I think that's a good thing. But we can certainly do some research and get back to you.
Streamlining is good. I think it makes it more clear and simplistic for people. I'm not denying that. I don't even remember actually anybody sitting down with me explaining the situation. I honestly don't, in 1991. You came on the board, you went to a board meeting, and you got all this information about the board packet, but at that time, they were not sitting down with board members explaining the whole process. And
Director
I don't know if
Coleman,
that
you might.
happened with the other board members or
John,
not.
again, I think this is now getting into the weeds on your particular situation. I don't know that this is the forum for doing that. As one board member to another, I'm just saying, expecting staff to be able to determine whether what was given out then, or expecting your memory to be clear enough to be able to accuse someone of not providing that information to you, I just don't think this is the place to do that.
Doug, I'm not accusing anybody of not giving me the information. There are a lot of people at the agency that have been there as long as I have, or shortly thereafter.
Looks like we have
My goal is to make sure that every employee now and in the future has a clear understanding of what the expectations are and how it works, plain and simple.
Looks like we have one more slide left, and then we have one or two comments for public comment.
Okay, moving on to more of the process. So when members near retirement, district staff takes the following steps to verify that there is continued reciprocity and that the process is final as it relates to the retirement paperwork that's been submitted with reciprocal benefits, if it applies. District staff verifies concurrent retirement date with the member and with reciprocal agencies. So President Katz, to your point, we're making sure that, all of the data is aligning. There's communications that in coordination that is happening amongst reciprocal agencies in order to coordinate the exchange of compensation data from each other. And after determining the highest pay, each reciprocal agency processes the member's retirement using the agreed upon highest compensation.
Cindy?
Yes?
I know when I had a Taft-Hartley pension, but when I retired, it was a few months actually before I got an initial amount and then it adjusted once all the final payroll. I don't know what needed to be done, but it went up a little bit. So that same information in this case, once you have your last date, but there's some other, who knows, I don't know, audit that gets done of the payroll records after the fact, once you actually terminate, because you can't do it until you actually terminate. So that final salary then gets communicated to the reciprocal agencies as well, right? So any adjustment. So still, it's all really, you get an estimate. That's the initial amount, you're going to start getting that check on whatever, a month later from after you retire, right? And then it gets adjusted a few months after that. So that same thing, in the instance of reciprocity, would get communicated out to the other reciprocal agencies. I think this is a Lisa question.
I would say here at the district, we pretty much work through that ahead of finalizing the pension. We are not such a huge agency as CalPERS that we usually have to do adjustments. So usually we've locked in. And I would also say that in many instances, we are the highest salary. And so we're pretty locked in. Here at the district, we usually have everything we need. Once that employee's retirement date is there, and then we do pay retirees once a month, we're usually ready and don't make adjustments after the first payment.
So we don't have that many many agencies where they're reporting their highest salary and we're on the hook.
Right, but we would ensure that we have heard from all agencies. We push pretty hard to get the other agencies to get back in touch with us with compensation.
But most of the time, we're not dealing with an unfunded liability. We're saddling other agencies with an unfunded liability. Is that?
That is correct.
That's
a way. That is one way to say it.
Based on your experience.
Yes.
Director Chan?
Cindy, I just wanted to ask you for a couple of items. I know Doug doesn't want to go through, Director Linney doesn't want to go through history. I understand that. But if you could privately provide for me Section 34 of our retirement ordinance, and also an answer to Director Coleman's question about when people received those huge stacks of papers from HR. And I just also wanted to comment that when, just for your information, when I started, the NeoGov system was difficult to access. And also, it was very buggy. So I just wanted to add that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
April, if you don't mind, could I ask clarification? Did you say the stack of information that was received, or is that being received by employees now? In other words, going back to?
No, going back to when they described that there was a point when employees would get a big stack of information from HR when they began, and including that, in that pile was information about reciprocity. So I'm just asking, basically, I don't find John's comment that irrelevant, but obviously some people do, but if you could just answer the question and give me the answer, I would appreciate that.
Will do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, are there any comments online?
We have one hand for public comment.
Okay. You may comment on item number 10, this presentation.
What was your last slide, Cindy?
That was my last slide, yes.
And
Thanks, Cindy. We may still have some board questions, but we're going to public comment now.
Sure.
Lana Coleman, you should be able to unmute your mic.
Yeah, thank you.
Your 3 minutes start now.
Thank you. I did come in from the swimming pool relaxing to listen to this. April took away one of my questions to see section 34. If all the board members could be given 2 pieces of paper, one would be section 34, and one would be Cindy's slide showing the 4 criteria so that board members could try and match up the ordinance language with those 4 that she said are in there. 3 of them are obvious, 1 isn't. And I would like that to go to board members. And I would like, Cindy, if you could expand the examples. You gave some, but you didn't show the examples of how people can actually work more years and receive less in if they're denied reciprocity. They could work 7 years at the state and 20 years at EBMUD after that, perhaps, and be eligible for reciprocity. But if they worked before the state, through the state, and 20 years after, they're not. So they've worked 9 years extra. If they didn't work those 9 years, they'd have gotten more in retirement. And I think that kind of example needs to be shown to the board so they understand what reciprocity does. And last, I'm sorry for John, I want to clarify, he didn't make it clear.
That's par for the course.
Yeah, John talk, we call it. He was asking why, he wanted to say, why aren't overlapping years just subtracted? It's punishment to say, oh, they blew it all together, when really it's just the overlapping years shouldn't be counted. And East Bay Mud ordinance says it can be changed. So those examples will show the punishment versus what might be considered by anyone who looks at it to be more fair. So those are my 2 requests and my clarification of what John was asking. Removing overlapping years is what he meant to say. Thank you, and that's it for me.
Yes, the next public comment is Yvette Rivera.
Thank you. I will be quick. Director Katz, it was really good information to get about how sometimes the delay of in processing termination papers can interfere with getting reciprocity if you go to an agency before that paperwork is completed. Is that what I heard? That was very interesting and good to know. Director Young, I really appreciate you bringing up the question about if the reciprocity information is available to employees before onboarding. And I just want to mention that the district may want to tell hiring managers not to tell candidates that they offer a job to what they think reciprocity, how reciprocity works. Because when I came here, I mentioned this before, I was told, oh yeah, you have reciprocity. And UCRS system doesn't have reciprocity with PERS. And that was fine with me because I was going to come anyway. But I was told that when I was offered the job I asked. Unfortunately, for somebody that was hired as recently as this year, I was told that she was told by a hiring manager, same type of information, and she went into a limited term position and didn't find out until she had basically missed the deadline that she entered into a position that didn't count towards reciprocity. So she lost her years at another agency based upon the fact that a hiring manager told her that no problem, you have reciprocity. So if that could be, addressed, that would be great. Director Coleman and Director Chan, you both mentioned about getting information from 2005. I've been an employee here since 2005. And I know Lourdes Matthews, the district's now, I don't know how long, retirement subject matter expert, has been here at least since I've been here. I think she got hired before I did. And I know as an East Bay MUD supervisor that I have electronic files that date back to 2005 because I need them, just institutional knowledge. So I can't imagine that it would be very much of a problem to get that information, but who knows? I just want to thank anyone that had a part in, bringing this up, because it is really, I mean, I've seen employees cry about how they were given misinformation and how they have to start from square one, and how it isn't fair when they watch us being able to benefit from such a great retirement system. So thank you for putting this on the table and addressing the problems. I yield.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera. It's back to the board for additional questions or comments, and I just want to say I do think it's very interesting to be thinking about this overlapping service issue. It's really not something that I think would be a priority for the district to be raising with the public employee pension community. But it does strike me that the world is a little different than 1937. We do have a workforce that's diverse and from time to time may wish to work in a job share or a part-time position, or may wish a gradual transition to have continuity in their projects from another public agency. And we as a policy matter, I think, should have more employees on employee status than contract work. That's so. I think that it would be really interesting to have a legislative reform that would have some way of avoiding double dipping, but not having havoc with someone's pension if they encounter overlapping service. That I think would be a practical thing to do, and can be done without an expansion of benefits or providing any windfall. It just isn't the world we live in, and it's really not a priority of the district to engage in that. But I'm stating my observation just since we had a good discussion here. That's my reaction to it all. Director Coleman and then Director Young.
Thank you, President Katz. I just wanted, on the last paragraph of the memo, it talks about a member who is unable to establish reciprocity will still receive pension benefits. It should probably be stated may be able to. It's less definitive, and we don't really know until the agencies talk on what the pension benefits may be. And commenting on something that they do not decide or have any control over. So it's just simple language that will receive to, may be able to receive.
Director Young?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for the presentation. I've been fairly familiar with how this works. The observation I have is with regard to our incoming employees, who are all all of our incoming employees are PEPRA eligible, which, with the exception of PEPRA applies to every public retirement system in the state of California, even the independent ones. So unless somebody's coming across from a pre-PEPRA tier, even then, actually, it doesn't matter. It's still their highest actually, can you clarify? So if they are like a tier one, a pre-PEPRA tier, it doesn't matter. That's what their previous agency is going to pay them. They're going to be a PEPRA employee at East Bay MUD. So if they're highly compensated, so if they're what's the limit for PEPRA? 125, 150?
It's about 137 maybe this year.
What?
I think it's 137 this year.
Okay, so if their highest average from the other agency was 150, but they're a PEPRA employee here, do we use their highest annual, and their highest annual ended up being 150, not their East Bay MUD?
So two things. If they come to the district and are from a pre-PEPRA tier and establish incoming reciprocity, they will join the district in a pre-PEPRA tier. They are not considered a new member. They already have public agency experience. They establish reciprocity so they don't break that
But we use our
experience.
formula. So if the formula at the other agency was 3%, and ours was 2.5 or 2.6 or whatever it was.
Correct.
It would be 2.6.
Correct. Our formula, but our pre-PEPRA tier.
Okay.
If they break reciprocity or if they come, so they can also be a PEPRA tier member at another agency, establish reciprocity with us, and now be a PEPRA tier member at the district.
PEPRA.
Yeah. So, but you are correct. I think what you're trying to describe is, what if somebody had 150,000 as their highest salary, but somewhere in their link they're a PEPRA member? It's hard to think that that would happen because you couldn't keep establishing reciprocity and then become a PEPRA tier member, but you would have to use PEPRA's rules on the maximum
But you
salary.
answered the question first by saying, no, they're not, if they're a classic member or pre-PEPRA in the agency they're departing, then they're still pre-PEPRA here. So that's the one thing, in addition to highest average salary, that transfers under
Correct.
reciprocity. Okay.
Seems like the 6-month break in service is completely determinative about whether they're.
Yeah, no, the break in service still applies, right? And within 6 months, break in service within 6 months. On the sort of policy side of things, my comment would be that reciprocity isn't the thing that I think most public employees want to see fixed. It's doing things about PEPRA that make it challenging for us and all other public agencies to continue to be employers of choice. Reciprocity is a pension enhancement. And I think as soon as we started messing, I think it's almost as big a third rail as Prop 13, frankly, at this point, in terms of who would come out of the woodwork. So I don't know if it's realistic or not, or should be a priority for us, but I think, there's other retirement fairness issues that are, as or more, in my mind, that are as or more important. Because people are still getting, unless they cash out, they're still getting, say they work 15 years somewhere, and then they, have overlapping service, at that time made a financial decision to say, I need this money. I've got 3 months of vacation, but I need to start working, and they decide to take that money now. They're making an active choice to do that. And they still can vest and establish pension credit at their new agency. And they'll get 2 pensions. They just won't be calculated using all the best numbers. To me, it's not a problem.
Director Linney?
Yeah, I just had one other question for either Cindy or Lourdes. And that is, can the retirement board make rules different with regard to reciprocity? I think you've already answered this, but I just want to get clarity about the East Bay MUD Retirement Board. Can it make rules different than what the state CalPERS rules are when it comes to reciprocity?
I think the reciprocal agreement was that we would agree to the rules set forth for all agencies for establishing reciprocity. If we do something different, I don't know that other agencies will honor reciprocity for whatever employee of ours moves on to a different agency. But I don't think you can, we wouldn't have reciprocity is basically what I'm saying.
If we change
our rules, we wouldn't have reciprocity because we've agreed with CalPERS that we would follow these rules of reciprocity, and we would implement these rules of reciprocity to be for people to be eligible.
And there's certain government codes related to reciprocal benefits too, that, you cannot adopt something that would go against the government code.
Right.
Is there a possibility to adopt the rules, but make exceptions in some way or another?
Well, if you do that, if you make exceptions to your rules that you've enacted, you are basically operating your plan in a way that would violate, that isn't consistent with the plan, and that is an IRS violation. It also could be a misappropriation of public funds. So we cannot operate our ordinance in a manner that is inconsistent with its terms.
And we could lose our tax exempt status.
And we could lose our tax exempt status, and our $2 billion fund will be subject to tax.
So you're saying there aren't no way to make any exceptions at all?
This has been a very educational and demystifying presentation. Are there any further comments? from the board?
I just wanted one other comment. John, I just want to be clear, I didn't mean to cut off your request or April's for more information on past practices. I just didn't see its relevance to ensuring that we're getting accurate information to new employees or current employees. I think we all agree that we want to avoid confusion about reciprocity, which is why I asked for this briefing. And I want to thank the staff presentation for that and all the questions and comments that we've received, because I think it has been a very enlightening conversation.
Director Coleman?
I'm just going to go off of Doug's questions, but with more Lourdes's response, if I could. Where does it say, do we have an agreement with CalPERS that you can't make changes? Is it written anywhere? Can we see it?
You would have to ask CalPERS that. It's our agreement with CalPERS that we follow the law. And if we change the laws and change the laws regarding reciprocity for ourselves, we can't, they probably won't honor reciprocity, and we won't honor reciprocity. You can't do it. That is the fundamental reason you have reciprocity. It's an agreement. We're all going to abide by the same rules.
So I think.
I understand that part, just having personally talked to head of reciprocity at CalPERS. She said they do their thing, we do all other agencies do their thing. We can't tell them what to do. They can't tell us what to do.
Yes, CalPERS isn't going to tell us how to interpret our own ordinance.
Right, and CalPERS isn't going to tell us, go ahead and break the law. We make that decision.
Yeah, but our ordinance does have to comply with our agreements with CalPERS and with the law. I think the overarching question is that reciprocity is the legal means by which we pay employees a salary based on perhaps the highest 2 years at another agency, no matter how little they earn here. In the absence of reciprocity, in the absence of that legal means to make that payment, you're essentially paying them a benefit that is disproportionate to the income that they earned at the agency. And that gets into gift of public funds territory.
And to the contributions that we have made on their behalf and that they have made on their behalf and that we have invested to cover the liability that we take on to pay people an amount for the rest of their lives.
Using public funds.
We would become less significantly, I think the idea behind reciprocity and why I asked the question about, sort of the balance is that the idea is it'll all come out in the wash, right? People go here, people go there, and it all, comes out in the wash. It sounds like, if Lisa's correct in her anecdotal assessment of we end up being the highest paid, and we're sending bills to other agencies, we actually end up, we're putting other agencies on the hook with, out of reciprocity. We're giving an extended benefit to our employees who leave our service or who come to us in their final years and, get paid a lot more. And then we tell the first person that they worked for as a plumber one, guess what? When you were paying $30,000 to, our SMT member, this is what you're going to get paid. This is what you're going to have to pay for their pension.
Well, we've all
Right?
had a lot of chance to
Yeah.
speak up about this. If we have any more questions about it, I suggest that we send those questions to the staff. And So without objection, I would ask that we move on. And I thank the Director Linney for raising this for the agenda and the board for her comments. The monthly report, Mr. General Manager.
Yeah, the month's report's attached, and I can answer any questions you may have. Also at your place is the Speaker's Bureau.
We move to reports and director comments. And item 11, the minutes from the September 26, 2023 Finance Administration Committee were included in the agenda materials. We will now receive an update from this morning's Planning and Legislative Human Resources Committee meetings and the October 6, 2023 Upper McCollum River Watershed Authority meetings. Director Linney on the Planning Committee.
We had 2 items this morning on our planning committee. One update on Los Vaqueros. Negotiations are continuing for that. It's a very complicated set of negotiations that are going on, and received a good update there. We also had a report which the committee accepted on water quality, and trying to think if there was anything in particular that stood out there. I got a report update on the lead programs, on PFAS, and disinfection byproducts. And a lot of work is being done, and nothing specific to report there.
Vice President McIntosh.
The Legislative Human Resources Committee met this morning. I was the only member present. Was interesting. Bill Patterson and John Coleman were absent and excused. So we could not vote on any of the items. I was only able to hear them, and we'll move them for a vote at future meetings. We had 2 items on the agenda. The first was introduction of a new proposed program, Employee Bicycle Loan Program, a very innovative program that has the ability to get many of our employees out of their cars, off the road, sparing the air, etc. The second was a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan update, and it was a very meaty, thorough report that I appreciated this time around, with layers of information, with promises of follow-through and follow-up. That's my report.
Thank you, Vice President McIntosh. Director Coleman regarding UMWRA.
Thank you, President Katz. We met at UMWRA last Friday morning prior to the barbecue at Pardee, and we accepted the filing for the third quarter fiscal year 2023 Treasurer's Report. We approved a motion the Forest Projects Plan Phase 2, a planning report, and heard possible action on a biomass management joint authority presentation. And then at UMWRA, I spoke at a party. I did speak on behalf of you, Andy, and I did note that Director Chan was there, but the other board members had previous commitments and were unable to attend.
Thank you, Director Coleman. We have a speaker card with a condition that did not occur, so I will just ask, are there any comments from members of the public on item 11? Seeing none, we will go to other items for future consideration. Please submit any items to the General Manager. And thank you if you've already submitted your written comments to the Secretary. Are there any verbal director comments or reports?
I have just one. My board briefing is coming up on October 19th? No. Yes, October 19th at San Pablo Reservoir. And anybody listening from Ward 3 that would like to attend, please contact our public affairs staff, and they'll be happy to get you an invite and particulars.
That is
And
so
I hope the
exciting.
weather holds.
It's so exciting you get to do your event at a reservoir. How beautiful. Any other directors? All right.
Let me just add really quickly at the Pardee barbecue. It was a very nice event, but there was a talk about the fossil finds, which was really fascinating. So it was a great time.
And I would like to take a moment just to recognize the contributions of our affinity groups, particularly Forza Latina and DART, our Disability Awareness Resource Group, for celebrations of Hispanic Awareness Month and Disability Awareness Month. Thank you so much to our affinity groups for celebrating our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts this month. And before we go to adjournment, I would like to take a moment to remember and honor Senator Dianne Feinstein after a long history of dedicated service in public office. Senator Feinstein's efforts had far-reaching impacts on so many important issues. We are especially grateful for Senator Feinstein's dedicated service to California and her leadership on water issues of importance to EBMUD during her time in the U.S. Senate. In 2000, Senator Feinstein was instrumental in assisting EBMUD and Sacramento County to find a path forward to build the Freeport Regional Water Project that resolved 30 years of conflict on the American River. The Freeport Water Project allowed EBMUD and Sacramento to develop a mutually beneficial supplemental water supply from the Sacramento River that was supported by the environmental community. The Freeport Water Project benefits East Bay customers during dry years by providing a reliable long-term supply, and EBMUD has been able to use these supplemental supplies to preserve cold water pools in our reservoirs to protect McCullummy River salmon. While the senator was a champion for developing new water supplies, she also supported efforts to conserve and recycle water. Thanks to the senator's support, EBMUD was able to secure federal funding for our recycled water program. On behalf of the board, we hope Senator Feinstein's family, staff, and friends will find solace in her outstanding record of achievements that have benefited so many in our state and nation. EBMUD will be forever grateful for her support for our region. With that, I would like to close today's board meeting in honor of Senator Dianne Feinstein. The next regular meeting of the board will be held on Tuesday, October 24th, 2023 at 1:15 p.m.